Well, this morning I want to talk about fathers and faith. And of course, do it because it's Father's Day today. And Father's Day is a day that we celebrate the good things that God gives us through our fathers. Now, not all fathers are helpful. Not all fathers are the kind of individuals that we want. And sometimes we bump into individuals who are hurt by their fathers. But today we want to recognize the best that God calls men and fathers to become. It's really an important part that we as men in the congregation and men of faith discover the best that God is striving to encourage us toward, and then to do what we can to hit that target and move in that way. When I was looking at this topic today, I was looking for words that are connected with fathers. And I found this slide, which I thought was really good because it has really great words about fathers. Fathers are loving, they're devoted, they're friends, they're inspiration, they're courageous, they're trustworthy, unforgettable, compassionate, and the list goes on and on. And I looked at that list and I thought, geez, that's a good list. I like that list. And as I kept looking and reading all the words, I said to myself, but there's one word that's missing from this list. And what's missing is the word spiritual, that our fathers are spiritual. And the challenge is that today in our community, in our society, men are not seen as individuals that are spiritual. And two words that you usually don't equate with fathers are spiritual and faith. Men are, strong and we're supportive and we're encouraging. But unfortunately, in community and in society, faith and spirituality is not connected with men for some reason. Men do things around the house. If you need a fence put in, men are there. If you need somebody to put motorcycles at the front of the church, the men are there, right? And it's great that men have all these abilities to do incredible things, fixing things around the house and doing things for children and for their partners. But one aspect of faith that we want to reconnect is this ability of fathers to have a deep and strong faith in God. It's way more important than we understand and know today. And the challenge is for us in the church is for men in the church to first of all get this and then find a way to disseminate that and to let our friends and people that we work with understand this as well. So we're going to talk about two things. The greatest responsibility of a father is first of all to connect with God. If you were to go out and ask men this question, say, what's the most important thing that you have a responsibility to do as a father, what would they reply? Provide for my family, look after my wife, protect my kids, build a home for them, keep them safe. And all those are very important. But the most significant responsibility that we have as men is to connect ourselves with God, to have an awareness of the significance of this deeper part of life, the part that we can't see, the part that we can't hold. And this is the spiritual part. This is the faith piece within our lives and within life generally. And it's so important that men understand this deeper part of life and have a connection with the Eternal One, to be aware of who God is. How does God work in the world? How does God work in your life and in mine? And then have a way to begin to work at sharing that with others. To be aware of the identity that you have in God. Found this slide that talked about the identity. There's a few things that you want to be mindful that we are called by God. We often think about calling as, God calling people to do certain things. Like God called Abraham, right? Called Abraham to go out, then called him to be the father of a great nation. And we think about God calling men and women to ministry. And we say that's a calling. But God calls each of us. And the first call to every individual, including men, is to come and be connected with the one who is eternal and deeper than life itself. Secondly, to be aware that we are chosen, that God is one who chooses you and wants to be in connection, wants to be in relationship. And that's why in the Christian church we talk about this personal connection, that God has this desire to know you as an individual specifically. And it's important for us as men to be aware that we are chosen, and that we are a new creation, that we have new opportunities, and we all mess up and we all make mistakes. Sometimes men do a little better job at that than the women, but we all mess up. And in Christ, we are a new creation, which means the past doesn't have to hold you back. Just because of something that you did years ago doesn't mean that stamps you for life. And Paul the Apostle is a great example of that. Paul was there at the death of the first martyr of the Christian church, which was Stephen. And he held the coats of all the men who got the stones, that threw stones at Stephen and killed him. And Paul witnessed this. And then to make matters worse, Paul went to the council and said, I'm going to go to Damascus and I'm going to take all the Christians and gather them all up and bring them all back here so that we can get rid of them as well. And so Paul didn't have this shining record in the context of our Christian faith. And yet he becomes, through the grace of Christ, a new creation. He becomes a new person. And he ends up being one of the great leaders of the Christian church. The fourth thing that men need to understand is that we are forgiven. You know, that the mistakes that we have made, the mistakes that we continue to make, are there to be forgiven, not to be held on to, not to drag us down, but to be released, to let go, and to receive the forgiveness that we have through Christ. To know that you are blessed. Men, do you realize how blessed you are in the journey of your life? You know, often it's really hard for us because we're so focused on the moment, you know, and what's happening or not happening around us, that we forget the multitude of blessings that God has given us in life, all the way up into and including this point. And the last one, to know that we are one in Christ. And the men of faith today in our churches need to understand that this is the identity that we all have, including the men. This identity that we have in God. And then the last thing is to share your faith with your children. Faith that we are given is not just simply to help you be strong today. It's about a faith that is meant to be passed on to those that are around us. And the number one group that we want to pass our faith along to is the children that are born to us, the children that are part of our family. And so, a father's faith in action involves a couple of things, and that's sharing spiritual experiences with your child. We're entering the summer months, and you're going to have lots of opportunities to be with your kids. And you're going to see sunsets and sunrises, and you're going to go out fishing, and you're going to do all these kind of things. And it's really important that as we're doing things with our children, that we help connect the spiritual part to life, that when you see the beauty of a sunrise, that you realize that's the gift that God has given us in the beauty of creation. When you're walking through the forest and you see a big tree that's been sawed in half and you see all the rings of the tree, right? And you know, when you get these big trees and there's hundreds of rings, to look at that and tell the kids about how you judge the age of the tree by the rings and by the width of the rings, right? It's an indicator of how good a year was or how difficult a year it was. But another piece you want to add spiritually is that in all of those years, God nurtured that tree. God provided the sunshine. God provided the nutrients. And so God was faithful for that 50, 100, or whatever number of years. And to just simply make that spiritual connection for our children. The The second thing is praying for your kids. Men, this is such an important thing. I hope if you're not doing it already, that you put your kids on a prayer list and keep it somewhere close to you. Because your children need your prayers. They need God's presence in their life. And one of the greatest things you can do is to be a man of prayer for your children. And you can pray for your children about what's going on in their life right now. They're having trouble with their friends, and Lord, help them to be supported as they're wrestling with those friendship connections. Or you can be praying for them to, study hard and work hard. But you can also pray for the future for your kids. Because you see, there's going to be lots of moments when you're not there, especially once they get into the teenage years, right? Lots of times when dad ain't going to be there because they don't want dad there in the first place, right? And those are the moments as you say, Lord, when he gets to that place of temptation with his friends, at a party, or out camping, or whatever, when she is tempted to do something that will not be good for her, Lord, I want you at that moment to intervene and give her the strength to make wise and sound decisions. And you could even pray for your children at the moment of their death. Probably something no one here has done. Your child is going to die one day, as are we. And one of the things that we can pray for our children is that when that moment comes, so for my kids who are around 30, it's going to be another 30, 40 years. I'm going to be long gone. But you see, I can pray and say, Lord, when that moment comes, whether it's in an easy place or a difficult place, what I want you to do more than anything else is remind them they're not alone when they pass from this side of life's curtain to the next. See, prayer is such an important piece in the life of men and women, but today I'm focusing on men. And men, you need to pray for your children. You want to surround them, and just like this, have this person, this child go out surrounded by your prayer and your strength. I remember when I was about 8 years old, and I went downstairs early in the morning, and my dad had this interesting ritual. He got up early because he had his own business. At 6 o'clock in the morning, he would go down in his study, and there in his study, he would do his 15-minute meditation. And he always kept a prayer list. One day I went down after he left, and guess who was on the prayer list? Right. And I remember being insulted. Why on earth would he be praying for me? And as I got older, my name got bigger on the list, actually. But I never forgot that my dad was praying for me. And that's what we want to do with our children. Doesn't matter if your child is 7 or 57 or 64, your children need your prayers. And the third thing is praying with your kids. Now, this is a little tougher, but one of the easiest places to do that is at the table. And unfortunately, there's so many people that are eating meals and not giving thanks at all. And every day you want to give thanks for different things. You can do the same prayer day in and day out. That's a good thing as well. But you can say, Lord, today we're just thinking about the sunshine that creates food. Or we're just thinking about the rain that it fell last night, and we're thankful how it creates growth. Or we're thankful for the farmers who are out there slugging out in the hot sun, right? Just so that we have food on our table. And men, you want to pray with your children. The easiest way is to start here. So when I come to your house, I love it when I go to people's homes because they always ask me to pray, and I go, I do that all the time. How about whoever prays normally every day, why don't you pray today? And I'll be part of that table experience. Men, you want to pray with your children. And the final thing is, it's important for you and I to know the biblical stories. Now, you can't know all the biblical stories, I understand that, but you want to get a Bible that's an easy Bible to understand and read, and there's some great ones out there. In the fall, when we come back, I'm going to talk about the Bible, and I'm going to talk about a good Bible to purchase. And then start reading some of these Old Testament stories, some of the New Testament stories. And absolutely, you're going to get into some books and they're just not going to make any sense at all. Don't worry about that, just move past them. But there's great stories about wrestling with God. Great stories about God being there in moments of fear. Great stories of how God blesses. Great stories about the love of God. And men, you want to know those stories so that you can share those stories with your children as they grow and continue to grow. I want to close today with a story. A man said one of the greatest gifts he got was a gift that he received at Christmas when he was a child. And under the tree that year, there was this little wee box, and it was given to him, and it was said, "To Brian and from Dad." And he opened the box, and it was pretty light, and he thought, geez, there's not going to be much in here, right? And you know how kids shake the box? And he opened the box, and in there was just simply a note that said, "Brian, my gift to you this year is 365 hours of being with me. And every night after dinner for 1 hour, that's your time. We'll talk about what you want to talk about. We'll play the games that you want to play, or we'll go the places that you would like to go." And Brian held on to that note for the rest of his life. And when he talked to his friends, he said, "This was the greatest gift my dad ever gave." And the neatest part of it all was, he didn't just give it one Christmas, but renewed the gift every year. What amazing gift you could give to your child. Now, they'll want other things as well, trust me on that one, right? And you don't go, "Here's the gift, that's all you get." Won't be enough, but it will be the most significant gift. Because when all the items you give, all the physical gifts that you have given, they won't remember them. They'll remember one or two. But your kids will not remember every physical gift that you give them. But they will remember the gift of your time. And in that time, may you as a father discover a way to connect with your kids on a spiritual level so that they might encounter not only the blessing of your presence and your care, but the gift of God's love and presence as well. Amen.